Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been reelected. He is likely to form a coalition government that is right-wing. He has said very clearly that he is not in favor of a Palestinian state. And now some of the American pundits are weighing in on this. And they're noticing what we'd been saying all along. Now, we told you that Netanyahu had no real interest in negotiating for a peace. And he confirmed that before the elections. Now, some will say he did it for the sake of the elections. That's irrelevant. He has stated it very clearly. And as Jonathan Alter points out in a really good piece in the Daily Beast, if he now goes back on his word, well, the right-wing government will likely collapse and he'll have to go for another revote. So he cannot back away from the statement without endangering his coalition that will come soon. So as long as Netanyahu's in charge, no Palestinian state, crystal clear. So now I want to go to Alter. Now, Alter has come to a similar conclusion that I came to well before the election. But mind you, like me, he obviously, like almost everybody in America, is a friend of Israel, wants to protect Israel, and will go further than me in thinking that some of the divestment movement is anti-Semitic, which I don't believe, okay? He's going to explain that a little bit later. Understand that context for what he's about to say. Alter says, like George W. Bush in his 2004 election campaign against John Kerry in the aftermath of 9/11, Netanyahu wielded security issues as a polarizing political weapon, overcoming personal unpopularity and a mediocre economic record with a campaign based largely on fear. It worked. Okay. Now that's Alter. I'm going to come back to Alter in a second. Now let me give you Thomas Friedman. Now Thomas Friedman on this issue is to the right of myself and Jonathan Alter. Now, he's also a guy who claims to be liberal, but was in favor of the invasion of Iraq. In this New York Times piece, he says all the Arab governments in the Middle East understand this force and violence. That's his perspective, which is, in my view, outrageous. He thinks that the latest war between Israel and Gaza was all the Palestinians' fault. He says it was Hamas who started the war. So that's his context. He has supported the actions of the right-wing government of Netanyahu before. But even so, with the outrageous rhetoric of Netanyahu before the election, here's what Friedman says. It is hard to know what is more depressing, that Netanyahu went for the gutter in the last few days in order to salvage his campaign, renouncing his own commitment to a two-state solution with Palestinians, and race-baiting Israeli Jews to get out and vote because he said too many Israeli Arabs were going to the polls, or the fact that this seemed to work. Again, on that issue, he is right. There was no question that he went to the gutter. And unfortunately, given the overwhelming results, a much more decisive victory than expected, it clearly worked. So that's a depressing state of affairs for what is happening in Israel. So now, what are the consequences of that? For that, we go back to Jonathan Alter of the Daily Beast. He says, a reckoning is coming, faster than expected for Netanyahu, his Likud party, and maybe even for the state of Israel itself. Wow. Those are strong words. Now, I agree with that, but I actually see some optimism here. So let's consider the rest of Alter's argument, and then I'll tell you my reason for optimism. He says, now the rest of the world will do what it takes to punish his government. That means the BDS movement, boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, will likely move from sometimes anti-Semitic fringe closer to the center of the debate on college campuses and international forums. Now, look, I can't speak for everybody in the BDS movement. I'm not familiar with all of them. Are some of them anti-Semites? I have no idea. But to smear the movement by saying it is sometimes anti-Semitic is, I think, totally unfair. The reason that movement exists is because those types of movements have worked with other governments in the past. And when you have a government that says, I will occupy somebody forever, I will never give them their rights, what else are you supposed to do? Of course you have to do boycotts and divestments. Otherwise, you're saying, yep, you're right. We fully support you. Go ahead and occupy the Palestinians and oppress them and never give them freedom, liberty, their own state. Ignore their right to exist. Make sure they never get it. You can't say that as a decent person. You can say it as an Israeli right-winger. You can say it as an American right-winger. But as a decent person, you can't agree to those terms. So Jonathan Alter is generally right about that as well. Now, as he continues, as the Palestinians pursue their case globally, with more finesse than they once had, the Israeli policy, shorn of efforts to achieve peace, will look increasingly illegitimate. That is exactly right. Now, the Palestinians, at least under the leadership of Abbas in the past, and the leadership in the West Bank in general, have gotten wiser. They have denounced terrorism, and they're saying we're going to go and try to get statehood through the United Nations. Very similar to what Israel did. Very logical. It's hard to argue against. You want a diplomacy, not violence. That's diplomacy. Now, on the other hand, the right-wing government of Israel is saying, we don't care about diplomacy. We will not recognize the Palestinians, and we'll never give them a state. Who's not a good partner for peace? All right, Alter continues. Even moderate Democratic Representative Adam Schiff, the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, told CNN that it was hard to imagine there would be no consequences from Netanyahu's new one-state views. So now there are some Democrats that are moderate and certainly on the side of Israel saying, there's got to be consequences. This is outrageous. And Adam Schiff is well known to be close to the Obama administration, and oftentimes the Obama administration will, some claim, coordinate with Adam Schiff to put out a message out there, okay? So, in fact, Alter says, Obama administration might consider selectively lifting the American veto in the Security Council that has protected Israel for more than 6 decades. Now, don't get carried away. It's not like America's going to be like, oh, no, yeah, we don't agree with Israel on anything anymore. Whatever you guys want, we'll let it go through the Security Council. No way. But are there some issues where America will say, hey, you know what? We're in favor of a two-state solution. The current government of Israel is not in favor of a two-state solution. We don't agree with them, so we will abstain from a vote. So the Security Council could actually pass some resolutions that pushes Israel, in my view, in the right direction, even if they don't like it in the short term. So these are big, momentous events, endangering America's rock-solid vote with Israel 100% of the time in the Security Council is a serious, serious issue. And that is what Netanyahu has done by saying, I will never give the Palestinians a state. Now, finally, there's an explanation here. Beset by the European boycotts, rebuked by the international tribunals, estranged from the President of the United States, it's not a pretty picture of the fate of America's closest ally in the region. Now, that is the description that Alter has. Now, he sees this as all bad for Israel. I don't. I see it as pushing Israel in the right direction. Because Netanyahu has told Israelis, and they have voted, unfortunately, in favor of perpetual war by saying that we're never going to lift the occupation. You're encouraging and aiding and abetting Palestinians who want to fight against you. I think that's a terrible idea. I think what's a great idea for Israel is peace. So I think the only thing that's actually going to bring that about is if you do a successful boycott, divestment, sanction movement so that the power structure in Israel goes, this is no longer advantageous for us. It's not advantageous for the Palestinians. It's not advantageous for the Israelis. Let's get to the better place. Let's get to a place where we have justice and peace. And as we know here in America, the old slogan, which is true, no justice, no peace. So if you don't have some sort of just solution for the Palestinians, you're not likely to get an outcome where they bow their heads and go, yes, you're right, occupy us forever. I don't want that for the Palestinians, and I don't want that for the Israelis. What I want, and most reasonable people in the world want, is a two-state solution.